Welcome to Exit Algorithms, the show where we decode what it really takes to scale, exit, and preserve the legacy of your business. Today, I'm excited to sit down with Anthony James, a corporate development professional at Harris Computer, part of the larger Constellation Software family. Harris is known for acquiring and growing software companies with a portfolio that spans critical vertical markets like the public sector, healthcare, and utilities. Their approach isn't about flipping businesses, it's about buying them for the long term and helping them thrive. Anthony plays a key role in identifying, evaluating, and integrating businesses into the Harris ecosystem. His work gives him a front row seat to how technology, strategic planning, and operational readiness shape successful business transitions, and how owners can maximize the value of their exit, especially in the software and tech space. Today, we'll unpack what business owners in any industry can learn from the technology world when it comes to preparing for a smooth, valuable exit. Welcome to the podcast, Anthony.
Hey, Pete. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait. It was great meeting you at the TIA conference a few months ago. I'm glad we stayed in touch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're on the other side of the state. You're on the west side of Florida. I'm on the east side of Florida. So that works out well.
Yeah, so I wanted to start off by asking you a bit about your background. You've been at Harris for a few years now. Can you tell us a bit about your background and what drew you to corporate development, M&A?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great question. I have been public facing pretty much forever. First of all, I'm a preacher's kid, so I grew up in the spotlight of a religious family, a theological family, and I'm the youngest of seven, and so I got to see my brothers and sisters do a lot of things, and so I've always had that opportunity to be aware of what impacts relationships and after going through school and all of those types of things, it was just a natural fit for me to gravitate to the financial world creating relationships. And so that's what I've done pretty much for the last 27 years, either being on the investment side of the ledger, creating relationships for both wholesale and retail investment opportunities, and then moving into mergers and acquisitions, first representing buy side and then sell side in mergers and acquisitions, evaluating, reviewing, and making consultations on opportunities for investors. And then ultimately that led me to Harris because it was as I mature in my life, the perfect fit for my skills, creating what is a mutually beneficial relationship between a business owner looking to exit their business or perhaps place their business in a more growth-inducing environment, and what Harris offers to those business owners. It's just a natural fit for me.
Yeah, no, I can understand that perspective, being the youngest of four myself. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that makes sense to kind of you naturally find yourself at Harris. Yeah, Harris has a unique approach for those unfamiliar to their acquisition process. How would you describe the Harris model and philosophy when it comes to finding a business to buy?
What we do, Pete, is a little bit different because when I talk to prospective business owners that may be attractive to us or that we are attracted to, generally, if they're not familiar with us, they think of us as being either venture capital or private equity. And we're not venture capital in that we tend to invest in and acquire more mature businesses than what VC does. But we differentiate ourselves from private equity in that we are a evergreen or forever acquirer. We do not resell businesses. And that is a primary and paramount difference between what private equity does and what we do. We acquire a good amount of businesses on an annual basis. The outfit that follows and tracks mergers and acquisitions on the West Coast by the name of Quorum, they have called us the number one volume acquirer of software businesses for the last 6 years running. That's their statistic and not ours. But what that means is we're very active in the marketplace. But the downside, or not the downside, but the flip side of that is also true, which is all of those businesses that we acquire in last year. Enterprise-wide, we bought 127 software businesses of various sizes. We're not reselling those businesses, Pete. We're not flipping those businesses. We're not coming in and saying we need to deconstruct this business to get a return on investment and put it back out there on the marketplace, sometimes unrecognizable from what it was when it came in. That's not what we do. It's the opposite of what we do. And so that's the primary difference. So our value proposition is really, we want to provide a legacy home for your business. We want to give you that continual annuity for the fruits of your labor. Business owners work hard. It's a great risk to go out, as you know, and to start a business. It takes money, it takes time, it can be challenging, it can be frustrating. It takes a lot of things. When you get your business to a point where you say, I've done all that I can do, or I'm just tired. I'm looking for the best place, not only for my business, for my team, and my customers. That's when the Harris value proposition really adds value. And that's what differentiates us from private equity.
Got it. Yeah, that no, it makes a lot of sense. Kind of the anti, vulture mentality, asset stripping, doing the opposite of poach, the hold and keep and hold. Yeah, I like that. I think we mentioned on the pre-show as well. A similar philosophy to Warren Buffett in terms of investment, holding for a long time, and finding great businesses.
Absolutely. We look for value. We look for value over growth. Higher growth businesses are generally not going to be more attractive to us because we're not paying for what it is that hasn't been realized, for example. But what we want to do, again, because we are that forever home for the business, we want to look for businesses that have unrealized potential, businesses that we can come and we can say, hey, you know what? We like this business. We see an upside for this business, but we like what you've done thus far. Let us give you the benefit of our resources. Let us give you the benefit of the support and the experience that we've had over these years in operating and acquiring vertical market software businesses to not only help you survive, but to help you thrive. And that's what we want to do.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to talk a bit about how small businesses can prepare for their exit, in the future, and kind of what they can do. What do you see? Do you see common pitfalls when businesses are looking to sell? Whether in software or other industries that limit their value or
Mhm.
complicate the sale process.
I do, and it's a good topic to talk about, honestly, because first of all, one of the things that I'm sensitive to in being public facing and being in corporate development and business development for as long as I have is just the attachment that business owners have to their businesses. And as I spoke on before, a lot goes into running a business, building a business up. I've built businesses up myself too, in particular, and so I know what that takes day in and day out. I know the sacrifices, and so it becomes for that business owner not just a financial consideration, but there's an emotional attachment as well. And so understanding that some business owners don't understand the depth of their emotional attachment, quite honestly. And there's some situations, Pete, where we're looking at an opportunity with Harris, with a business owner, and it's a perfect fit. It's a mutually beneficial opportunity for both, but the business owner just can't see that the emotional attachment is getting in the way of a good business decision. So I would say first and
Mm,
foremost, understanding that emotional attachment is generally present with business owners and being sensitive to that on both sides, because again, some business owners are not. That's the first thing. But secondly, after that, I would also suggest really understanding what your business is. What business are you in? What pain points do you bring solutions to? What do you solve? Why do your customers choose you? Do they choose you because you have a product or service that is superior? Do they choose you because you have a customer service process that's superior in the marketplace? What makes you distinct? Because if you understand your distinction, then you can have a better conversation about how your business should be valued. And oftentimes, business owners can have successful businesses, but sometimes they truly don't understand what makes them distinct in the marketplace. And I think that's important. And then the third thing that I would suggest to really, really quickly is just understanding your lines of revenue. How are you making your money, and what is making the money that you make valuable? All revenue is good, but some revenue is more profitable than other lines of revenue. And for example, if
mm,
we're speaking about software businesses, obviously recurring revenue is more valuable in looking and valuing a business than transactional revenue is, for example. So understanding what your lines of revenue are, how you're making your money, and what that does for your business longer term is also something that business owners tend to overlook. So those three things would be my top three.
thank you. Yeah, no, that's great. That's something I find a lot too, talking to sellers, is the emotional aspect, their attachment to the business, and it can complicate things, especially as you get close to the finish line of closing. But
It
that's great
does.
insight.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely
I was
does.
curious too. Oh, sorry.
No, no, I'm good. I apologize.
Uh, for founders or owners that aren't in the software space but need to level up their tech, especially 2025 AI automation,
Mhm.
is what do you see think certain tech that is sort of non-negotiable for businesses these days?
Non-negotiable, I think you have to have, if you're not utilizing artificial intelligence, you have to have a plan for it. Full stop. There has to be you have to know that it's something that is going to be table stakes in the marketplace very, very soon. So if you're not utilizing it, you have to have a plan for it. But here's the other thing that I'd suggest that I also think gets missed. You have to have a plan for your artificial intelligence that is specific to a process or a solution for the market. One of the things that I see that's very disappointing is the promise that artificial intelligence is going to be all things for all people. Ultimately, it will not be. And there are a lot of businesses that discuss artificial intelligence as if, we've got it, we're going to use it, it's just going to be this, and you're going to be fine. What we would term horizontal use cases, vertical use cases, more specific use cases are really going to be the differentiator of businesses that utilize artificial intelligence well, as opposed to businesses that don't. And the customers, the revenue, and the profitability will follow those businesses that utilize artificial intelligence well. So again, have a plan for artificial intelligence and have a specific use case or use cases for it. Those are things that you have to have no matter what your business is, whether it's a software business, whether it's a hardware business, whatever it is, you've got to have something, because artificial intelligence is going to make everybody more efficient, and it's going to free up the intellectual capacity that will allow other new ideas to be generated, and then it'll become like a flywheel. The more efficient we become
Mm.
with the utilization of AI, the more we can create uses for AI, and the more our businesses become more efficient.
That's an excellent perspective. Yeah, I can see definitely table stakes. And if you're not using or figuring out how to use it, then you're behind the curve a bit. On that note, what does a well prepared business look like to to an acquirer like Harris?
Well, for us, a well-prepared business is first of all going to touch those three things. The
Mm,
business owner, the CEOs, the majority shareholders, all those stakeholders are going to have a good understanding of who they serve, what they do well, what they don't do so well. A common phrase that I use when I'm speaking with my team is what's working well and what needs improvement. Those businesses are going to understand what's working well and what it is they need to improve, and they'll be looking to address those things in a singular way. Number two, you got to get customer service right, Pete. You have
mm,
to prioritize making sure that the service to your customers is such that they want to continue being longer term customers for you. So that's important. Closely aligned with that, though, is making sure that the teams for those businesses are all aligned with the mission of the businesses, because you can't take good care of your customers if your team is not in alignment to be the best that they can be. And going back one step further, if we don't know what that business does well and could be doing well. So those things, first and foremost, as it relates to the business, presents a well-prepared business. And then again, understanding, what the lines of revenue are, understanding what makes your business valuable from a financial perspective, and making sure that you can have value in looking at your financial statements, your profits and losses, and you've got a more smooth revenue coming through, and not one that's so lumpy. All businesses have slower periods and stronger periods, but the smoother the revenue looks like on paper, the more valuable that business is going to be. Another thing that's important, believe it or not, is a business that has some room for improvement. We look at
mm.
businesses here at Harris, and sometimes we see very high profitability businesses with a very high EBITDA, and businesses that have an EBITDA that's, 60, 70%, believe it or not. We don't like those businesses so much because we can't improve those businesses. And we want to be able to continue to grow a business, but also improve the profitability. And if you've got a business that is doing things so well that it's really hard to improve upon, that's a great case study for business school. I will take my hat off and applaud it on that. But at some point, it's actually going to depress your value a little bit, because an acquirer is not going to be able to grow that business very much. And I know that seems counterintuitive. I will
Wow.
admit that right off the top, but it's also a truth, again, for us, because we're not looking to resell the business. Now, if an acquirer is going to look to take a business that's a very high EBITDA business, and he may not be able to improve it much, but he can do some things because he knows he's going to resell that business in another 5 years or so. That's a slightly different story, but I will say that the value of that business without a higher growth ceiling is going to be depressed somewhat, and that's something also to be careful of.
Wow. Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, you can almost be too good, at least for the businesses that you look at. No, that makes a lot of sense.
And
Um,
and 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 in keeping with that,
mhm.
you got to have some realistic valuation expectations for your businesses as well. Again, whether they're, software businesses, technology businesses, or what have you. We speak to a lot of business owners and a lot of shareholders, and they look at the numbers in the marketplace and they think, well, my small business is worth this because I saw this in the marketplace and they just got acquired for, this multiple, this amount, what have you. there's always context, right? And sometimes we
Hmm.
don't understand the context of why a business changes hands at a particular level. So it's good to have a realistic valuation expectations. We here at Harris do a lot of research on what happens in the marketplace, but we don't just do that research ourselves. We also get a lot of data from third party researchers and evaluators from what's going on in the marketplace also, and we aggregate that. So it's not just our thought, it's not just our analysis, it's others as well that are bringing a consensus to the marketplace. And so when we talk about market activity, we have a very good handle on what is reasonable versus what is unreasonable. And we can show you, hey, you know what? Businesses of this size, businesses of this caliber, private businesses versus public businesses, this is what the range is. And a lot of times it's a stark contrast, Pete, to what some of the business owners would think because their expectations have been driven by input that's not necessarily appropriate to their situations.
Mm. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it sounds like probably a lot of your uh, one of the things you do is to educate the business owner on these things. You know, there's a lot of nuances with multiple arbitrage, and they don't quite understand why certain businesses might go for those 10x multiples that and smaller ones might not. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, that is a part of it. I smile when you said educate because many times business owners don't like to think of themselves as being educated. So I just like to say we like to give them good information, Pete. We like to give them actionable insights, Pete, that will allow
uh,
them to reframe some of their thinking, and that generally goes a bit better. And one last thing I'll suggest as well is having a business in whatever industry that you play in that is mission critical for your customers. You want to have, we call it stickiness in industry jargon, but you want to have a business that your customers, your buyers do not want to be without. If they were without you, they would suffer hardship. You want to be that closely aligned with those that you're serving so that you know they will be there with you.
mm, yeah, that's another good tip. Another good actionable insight there.
All right.
I
All right.
appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of sellers can be kind of nervous about a sale, especially what's going to happen to their business or their employees. How does Harris handle the integration part post acquisition?
Great question. We have a dedicated team of integration experts that really become a part of the process earlier on. Keep in mind, Harris, as a part of Constellation Software, has been in business since 1995. Harris actually predates Constellation Software by 20 years, was one of the first Constellation Software acquisitions. But the enterprise that is Constellation Software, of which Harris is a part, has been acquiring businesses since 1995. And so integration has always been a early part of the process. And so when we go from the origination phase to moving to the mergers and acquisition execution side, where we're talking about the examination of financial statements, where we're starting to look at valuation and modeling and those types of things, diligence has as a portion of it the integration team coming in, introducing themselves, gathering data, assessing things that may need to be adjusted for that smooth integration process. I'll be honest and say that it's a practice. And with some businesses, we get it very, very well. I've spoken to some business owners that we've acquired their businesses, and they've said, you know what, you should have asked and been a little bit more careful with this or with that. There was a great process overall, but this was an opportunity for learning. And so, we're always sensitive to that as well. But Integration for us starts early. We ask a lot of questions. We're sensitive to making it smooth and seamless. It's a dialogue between both parties. So we want to hear from you. We want you to hear from us. Neither side with a Harris or Constellation integration is saying, hey, you've got to do it this way. But what we're looking to do is to come to consensus and make it the best way, keeping in mind, again, this is a long-term relationship. This is not a
Mm.
short-term relationship. And so if I can use a relationship analogy and say we're looking to get married, really. And so we want to make sure that when we set up a household together, that both sides are either mutually satisfied, or if the case is they're mutually dissatisfied, it's equitable either way. But we don't want one party to feel that they've gotten everything that they want and the other party to think that they've got nothing, because then that leads to an unhappy marriage, and that's not what we want here at Harris.
Definitely. Yeah. No, that's for good tips there. Really appreciate it, Anthony. We're coming up on time here. I was gonna ask you what business owners could do to start prepping it, say 2 years in advance. You talk about integration,
Mhm.
and you gave some really good pointers of things to watch out for. Yeah, is there anything besides those that they should look at to best prepare for an exit?
Just make sure that again, you've got a good understanding and expectation of what you think your business is worth. Have a good understanding of the things that are important to you for the person who might be wanting to acquire your business. Do you want to be acquired, for example, by a strategic, someone who's in a very similar line of business as you, because you think that would be more valuable to you, your team, and your customers? Is a financial acquirer more important? Whatever is that's important to you, make sure that you have a good understanding of that as well. Make sure that you are prepared to go through the due diligence process, particularly with the presentation of financial statements, because those will be asked. And you want to make sure that you can set up a data room and put your financials in there and be able to engage with that process. And finally, take your time. Don't be too hasty to go through the exit process, because if you're dealing with an experienced acquirer at whatever level that acquirer is, they will be able to move as quickly as you need to. You, as the business owner, should not have to be in a rush to do anything. So take your time, be a little bit deliberate to make through your decisions, think through your decisions to ensure that you're making the best possible decision for yourself, for your team, for your customers, and you should have a good outcome.
Thank you, Anthony. That's really summed it up there. I appreciate the education or actionable insights you shared. I think a lot of listeners will find a lot of value. So, yeah, is there anywhere the listeners can connect with Harris? Of course, in the show notes, I'll drop the link to the website. If there's any other
Yeah,
place?
there's the Harris also has a LinkedIn page, so you can look up Harris on LinkedIn as well, and just follow us on LinkedIn and stop by the website. And if there's any questions or anything, drop us a note on the LinkedIn page, and we'll respond to it. But Pete, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you and your listeners today. I've had fun, and hopefully I've said something that will be beneficial to those who heard me. So thank you again.
Thank you, Anthony. It was a great conversation.
All right. All right.